The Genius Act is meant to create a clear. On this news, Bitcoin is at all-time highs and all of the other altcoins are following. Hello guys, hello. My name is Joe and I talk everything about geopolitics and macroeconomics. And today we will dive deeper than any financial YouTuber dares to dive. Today we will briefly mention the news in the headlines about the Genius Act, and then we will try to answer why is it that even though the economy is doing badly, even though we are in all the military conflicts all around the world, why is it that the stock market and then the crypto market is at all-time highs? Why is this contradictory scene playing out in front of our eyes? But before we do that, make sure to do me a tiny little favor. Make sure to smash that like button. Make sure to smash that subscribe button. It helps the algorithm and it helps to pay my bills. Also, make sure to check out my blog. It is amazing, unique, everything you ever wanted, and even more. And even more. And without further delays, let's go. Let's go. Okay, so Trump administration is trying to pass the Genius Act, which is meant to create a clear guidelines for the crypto industry. It's meant to clearly state what is a security, what is a commodity, what is a potentially a collectible. Now, I just want to mention that some of these clear guidelines actually, due to the fact that some of the cryptocurrencies feel a little bit, tiny bit more like scams. Let's be honest, some of them, especially some of the altcoins, especially if you have the ability to create a never-ending supply of extra tokens of your particular cryptocurrency, I cannot imagine how it can ever be identified or classified as a security, but maybe, I guess, collectible. Generally speaking, a lot of these guidelines also require you to follow a restrictions imposed by government, and so this could limit the potential reach of crypto. Now, for the actors who are true to the cause, who are true believers, and who truly are trying to develop a real sensible businesses, for them clear guidelines may be what separates them from the rest of the scams. And so this is definitely a positive for some, but generally speaking, a lot of cryptocurrencies have been seen as tokens for speculation, as a very, very high risk. And it is hard to imagine that many of these cryptocurrencies have a real future, real long-term future. I would assume that 99% of these projects, and maybe even more than that, 99.9% of all of these crypto projects are not reaching the moon. Let's just say that. Most of them are probably not reaching the moon. I would assume they would most likely reach the bottom eventually. Now, part of this act was order issued by the White House, by Donald Trump, but I would assume it was most likely by some of the staff. Some of the staff preferred this. Some of the people in Trump's administration prepared this. Well, basically there was, I'm not legally 100% sure how to call this, but there was a order to basically from all of the parts of the government, various different branches, send all of the bitcoins into treasury, into United States' treasury. So for example, if a FBI sees bitcoins from criminals, if they are, for example, running a I don't know, like a trafficking website on dark web, and if they collect bitcoins, then these bitcoins are being seized by the FBI, and then FBI holds them on their balance sheet. And so there was a order to send all of the bitcoins from various different branches, like for example, we made this example with FBI, or it could be NSA, it could be other agencies that hold IRA. All of these different various branches of government were meant to send the seized Bitcoin into treasury. But there is a rumor that instead of sending them, they actually sold these Bitcoins because otherwise they would lose it, right? Otherwise they would lose it from their own balance sheet. So for example, if Bitcoin is being seized by FBI and they have it on their balance sheet, they have X amount of dollars in Bitcoins on their balance sheets. And if they send it through treasuries, they will lose that money, basically. They will lose those Bitcoins. It will be inside of treasury. It's no longer under management of FBI. And so what they did, instead of sending it, they most likely sold it. At least that's the rumor, which is perfectly legal. It's not, it's understandable, you know, if you own something, you know, government employees, you know. So they sold off all of these bitcoins, and so it turns out that inside of treasury there is the less bitcoin that was previously assumed. The government, the United States government, holds less bitcoin than was previously assumed, and so that's a big news for the crypto community. Probably for most of you it may not be that important, but overall, my point is that United States government held less Bitcoin than was previously assumed. It's around 10% what everybody assumed. So instead of I believe it was 200,000 individual Bitcoins was assumed that the government holds, it's around 20,000, something around like that. So it's only 10% of what was previously assumed, and that's mostly because various different branches of the government sold off bitcoins. Despite all of this, and despite all of the Bitcoin being sold off onto the market, Bitcoin has been relatively trading kind of sideways. There has been a lot of sell-off from the government, but the market was able to absorb it. It's mainly because there has been a lot of companies, like we talked about it previously, that have named themselves as Bitcoin treasuries, and basically started acquiring debt, and with that debt buying up Bitcoins, which meant that their stock price surged, their stock price went up on this news, and so they have benefited hugely from this adjustment, which I have named in my previous video .com style like bubble, and it kind of feels like it. And right now, this was previously in the couple of months leading up to this Genius Act, is because the government needed to do some adjustments. And right now, as the Genius Act is being passed, right now there is still a few steps need to be taken, but it's most likely going to pass. And as this Genius Act is being passed, Bitcoin is at all-time highs. Bitcoin is reaching $120,000, and by the time you are seeing this video, it might be even $125,000. I'm recording it before it, but I'm assuming it's going to reach 125. So why is this happening? Why is the stock market and the crypto market ripping all-time highs, even though the economy is extremely weak, the consumer is extremely weak, and job numbers aren't as strong as everybody assumed, and there is basically no rise in inflation, even though we had huge tariffs put on various different imports, and we still don't see any inflation, which obviously tells you that the economy is extremely weak. Why is all of the assets reaching all-time highs? Well, we already talked about this in previous videos as well, but basically the banks are no longer lending into the real economy. They are not lending into the mom and pops. They are not lending to people who are building, coffee shops, or who are starting various different forms of businesses. They are no longer lending to them, but they are lending to already established billionaires and millionaires who have various different trust funds. They are lending to these people, and what these people do is that they are buying new assets. They are acquiring new stocks on their portfolios. They are buying even cryptocurrencies occasionally. Now we have to understand that a lot of these people do not have assets parked inside of the United States. They usually try to park these assets outside of the jurisdiction of the United States in order to avoid taxes. For example, your Cayman Islands, we talked about this. For example, your Netherlands. For example, your Luxembourg. All of these tax havens have a lot of what we call shadow banks, which are just normal banks. They are normal banks. They are part of a larger group, larger conglomerate. So they are basically daughter banks of the banks in the mainland in the United States. And what the normal everyday banks that you know of are doing is that they are sending money into these daughter banks, into these shell sort of companies, into these shadow banks, and then these shadow banks are lending the money inside of these tax havens into the hands of the trust funds that are managed by or hedge funds that are managed by the people who are managing the money of these billionaires. So instead of lending into real economy, they are lending into the financial system and the shadow financial system in order to avoid taxes. They are lending into the shadow financial system. And this is troublesome because it inflates the bubble. It inflates the asset bubble. And while the economy is basically stalling or even slowly breaking. Now there are obviously signs all over the place. There are signs all over the place, even though S&P 500 is ripping all-time highs. Even though cryptocurrencies are ripping all-time highs. Gold is basically also ripping all-time highs. It's quite positive on a yearly timeline. It's ripping all-time highs, and that is because most people are trying to ride this bull market till the end. All of the active managers are definitely not going to go against the trend. Everybody is riding the bull. Everybody is trying to squeeze in their own profits. They are hoping that they will be able to time the market correctly. And yet, everybody's hedging themselves in securities like gold. So everybody assumes that this will not last forever. This is obviously a dangerous game to play. Trying to time the markets is a very dangerous game to play. But obviously during the cucumber season, during the what we call in media cucumber season, or what kids call holidays, summer holidays, there is almost usually no movement in the market, or just slightly up. There is usually no big time moves. I just want to remind everybody that historically speaking, autumn season, Halloween season, tends to be slightly downwards movements. During those months, we see usually downwards movements, historically speaking. There are some months that are better and some months that are worse. So it's hard to tell. It is always hard to time the markets. But generally speaking, nothing happens during summer. Almost nothing happens. Everybody's on holidays, and so it is hard to time the market. I'm definitely not going to try. Also, I want to say that this is not financial advice, but yeah, even though that the entire global markets seem to have cracks in them, even though we are in much more dangerous, military speaking, much more dangerous times. The market's reaching all-time high, and it's just such a red flag. It seems like such a red flag, but nevertheless, going against the trend, it's very, very hard. It's very, very hard. One funny last little thing is that there are obviously a lot of signs that the economy is weakening, and for example, the oil is down, the barrel, one cost of barrel. Even though we have wars in Middle East, the oil is down cheap, and it's because the economic activities are slowing down, so nobody needs extra oil. And so there is a lot of signs, and somebody went to Donald Trump, and obviously, Mr. Donald Trump, there are so many signs that the economy is weakening. Look at the copper gold ratio. Look at the copper is going down. That is because it's an industry metal. It's used in a building, houses, building shit, generally speaking, just building. And so when it goes down, it means that people are not building as much. And so somebody went to Trump and said, Trump, it's going down. It's going down. Copper is going down. We are in a bad economy. What Trump did is he put tariffs on copper in order to put the price of copper up. So somebody went to Mr. Trump and said, Trump, oh my homeboy Trump, the copper is going down. What are we going to do, Mr. Trump? Put a tariff on copper. And so copper is surging a little bit up on this news, despite the fact that the economy is weak. Copper is up, so one indicator is definitely it's because Trump put tariffs on copper. Yes, that's definitely going to solve everything in the economy. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. You have to say that's pretty hilarious. Also, I just want to mention that there has been new tariffs on Brazil. That is because they had held the meeting, a BRICS meeting, and BRICS are trying to basically create a new reserve currency. Now, obviously, this is not going to happen because dollar is no longer the reserve currency, so you cannot replace something that is no longer the reserve currency. What is reserve currency are banknotes on dollar. So similarly, like banknotes started on gold, today there are banknotes on dollar. That is the real reserve currency, and they are being traded on repo markets. And in order to issue these banknotes are viable for the transfers, on the other side you have to put up what's called collateral, and usually the United States treasuries are being put up as a collateral. So no longer we transfer real dollars, but we transfer banknotes on dollar, and those are the real reserve currency. Not dollars, but banknotes on dollars. And one thing that I also want to mention is that it works more like a real network. meaning that it is a interconnected financial system where on one side you always have the collateral, United States treasuries. So United States treasuries are the only treasuries that serve two purposes. One is as a reserve asset, and one is as a collateral in the financial system. That is only United States treasuries that serve this double purpose. And on the other side of the trade, you always have the banknotes on dollar. And these banknotes on dollar, they make sure that there is enough liquidity in the system. So if any country needs dollars immediately, they don't get dollars. They get bank notes on dollar. They have overnight liquidity. They get banknotes on dollar, and in that sense, dollar is no longer. I think since the 70s, dollar is no longer the reserve currency. It's the banknotes on dollar, and so you cannot replace a dollar because it's no longer the reserve currency, but it is a interconnected system where there are two sides that are being traded constantly, and it's the banknotes on dollar that is the real reserve currency. Now, with all of this being said, I have a huge announcement to make. One of our investigative journalists, Poppy Gloria Samoria, has been able to secure interview with Bigfoot.
Thank you for coming out here into the wilderness, and thank you for having me on your podcast.
Life-sized Bigfoot. So guys, make sure to check out the video on my channel. It's going to be up soon. Also, make sure to check out my blog. It is unique, amazing, fun, lots and lots of fun. So make sure to check it out. And make sure to smash that like button. Make sure to smash that subscribe button. Make sure to check out the video here. Make sure to check out the video there. And everywhere. And guys, I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.